When Victor Hensley was hospitalized, his daughter sent her son Paul to check on him and ensure that his house was prepared for his return. However, Paul and his wife had different plans. Upon Victor's return, he discovered his home in disrepair and was shocked by what he heard from his grandson. Juliana told her father, 87-year-old Victor Hensley, that when he called her from the hospital, he had called 911 after a heart episode, thinking it might be more serious. The doctor said they had to run more tests and that there were several things they needed to check before he could return home. He called his daughter, who lived in Miami, asking if she could come to Austin, Texas to help him out, but she couldn't. Holding his cell phone to his ear while in his hospital bed, they eventually hung up, and the doctors asked Victor to remain in the hospital for a few days while they checked everything and decided what treatment he needed. "You need to go to Austin and check on your grandfather. He's all alone," Juliana insisted to her son Paul. "I don't know if I can, Mom," he responded. They were speaking on the phone, and Juliana would not take no for an answer. "Paul, you need to be there for your grandfather. Who knows how long he's going to live after this, especially if his heart starts failing? You're his only grandson. Remember that," Juliana tried to convince him. "He always said you would inherit his house and his things when he passes. Maybe you should check the house and see what repairs it might need so he can live comfortably for however long he has left." Paul was quiet for a second, and his mother thought he might have hung up, but he finally answered in a strange tone, Okay, I'll go. Natalie will go with me. I think I can ask for some time off work since I haven't taken a vacation in a long time." "Good, thank you, son. My work wouldn't budge, but I trust you to help your grandpa as best you can. I love you, dear," she continued, relieved that her father would not be alone after he was discharged from the hospital. "I love you too, Mom. Bye." Unfortunately, Juliana had no idea what her son was honestly thinking. A few days passed, and the doctors finally prescribed Victor several medications after checking his test results. They released him from the hospital, warning him not to strain himself because he had to be careful with his health. Even after getting better, Victor nodded at all their explanations, but he was not paying much attention. He was worried because Juliana hadn't called the day before, and she had told him that Paul was coming to stay with him. He didn't have his grandson's phone number, but he hoped to see him at the house. So he took a cab from the hospital to his home. He was surprised to discover some furniture on his front lawn and recognized it as his own. Moreover, his door was slightly ajar, but he remembered that the paramedics who took him to the hospital had shut it completely. What was going on? The most shocking thing happened when he entered. The entire house was empty. The paintings on his walls, his military memorabilia, his credenza, the kitchen table and chairs, everything he didn't see outside was gone. There were several plastic sheets in some areas, as if someone was painting or doing some construction on the house. "Hello," he called out to the completely empty space and heard footsteps coming from the hallway where the bedrooms were. "Ah, Grandpa," Paul asked, confused at seeing him. But Victor didn't pay any attention to that reaction. He breathed a sigh of relief. "Paul, oh, thank God. I thought someone had broken in and taken everything I own. What is happening here, my dear boy?" He asked his grandson and approached to give him a tight, manly hug. "Oh, well, yes, no one broke in," Paul mumbled, pursing his lips but returning the hug. Finally, Victor realized that Paul was acting strangely. "What's going on?" "Well, we actually wanted to surprise you," he started. "Yes, Natalie and I. She's here," Paul revealed and turned towards the hallway to call his wife. "Honey." She came out, and her eyes widened when she spotted Victor. "Hey, Mr. Hensley." "Hello there." "Hello, dear. It's so nice to see you. I haven't seen you since the wedding." Victor smiled at his grandson's wife and kissed her on the cheek. "So, tell me what's going on with my house." Paul and Natalie exchanged a weird, quick side-eye look, but Paul answered first. "We wanted to remodel it before you left the hospital. It was in serious need of some TLC, and we hoped this would make you feel better, but you're out sooner than we expected." Victor smiled widely at the two young people in his living room, thinking how thoughtful they were. "That's wonderful, although I hope you guys are not spending too much money." "Oh no, don't worry. I know a guy," Natalie chimed in, placing her hands in her pockets. Her grin was awkward, but the older man didn't notice. "Cool, what about my stuff? Where are they?" "They're currently in storage, except for a few things we want to replace as a gift," Paul explained. "Those are outside, waiting to be picked up by the garbage men. We had to put them there for the remodel." Paul explained with a strange pause, "But the bedroom will still have everything. Don't worry, we'll be able to sleep well at night." "Thank you. Thank you so much, my boy. You are amazing," Victor said, hugging them both simultaneously. He was incredibly happy to see family again and realized how much they cared for him to do something so thoughtful. "Now listen, I have to get some prescriptions filled, but I'll be back soon." "Sure," Paul and Natalie said in unison, chuckling awkwardly. Victor frowned at them for a second but didn't put much thought into their attitude. He left for the local pharmacy, which was within walking distance. When he returned several minutes later, he didn't see Paul or Natalie in the living room. He heard their voices coming from Juliana's old bedroom and approached to ask them what they wanted for dinner. but something Natalie said stopped him in his tracks. "What are we going to do, you idiot?" She insulted her husband, and Victor had never heard her speak to him that way. "Natalie, calm down. It's fine. It just messes with our plans for a bit," he soothed. "Plans a bit? We were dying, and this was going to be our house. That's why we're spending all this money on it. But you think I was going to dip into my money and help fix someone else's house when we still have to live on rent?" Natalie questioned, almost mockingly. Victor's eyes widened, and his hand flew to his mouth so that no sound would come out. He wanted to listen to the rest of the conversation. "Natalie, it's fine. The house will be mine one day or another, and he has tons of money saved up. Just think of it as an investment," Paul assured, frustration dripping into his voice. But Natalie was outright angry. "No, we're not going to spend a single dime, and I don't care about him. But tomorrow we're getting on a plane and going home. This was a waste of time. We can't leave this house like this." "Yes, we can, and we will. That's final," she screamed at Paul. Victor finally had enough. He went back to the front door, pretending he had just arrived from the pharmacy, but he called out to them, and they both acted like nothing was wrong. They talked about what to make for dinner, and were completely pleasant around Victor. But he now knew the truth, and it was time to teach them a harsh lesson. They were eating spaghetti and meatballs, one of Paul's favorite meals, on the empty living room floor when Victor finally cleared his throat and spoke up to Paul. "I wanted to talk to you about something important," he began, noting how Paul and Natalie perked up. "For some reason, I've been thinking about moving into a nursing home permanently. I don't want another emergency to happen while I'm alone here." "What? No. But I think it's the right choice, and I think you two should have the house." Paul and Natalie's jaws dropped, and they looked at each other in delight. "Are you serious?" his grandson asked, clearly delighted. "Thank you, Grandpa. This is an honor. We're going to get this house looking so good," Paul finally said, and Natalie echoed his gratitude. Over the next few weeks, Paul and Natalie remodeled the house as best they could. They had actually saved a few things that belonged to Victor in storage, but they got rid of some old stuff, and he acted like that was fine, but it wasn't. Finally, the house was done, and Victor suggested having a housewarming party. He told Paul and Natalie that he was moving into the nursing home soon and that they should start preparing to live there permanently. Victor's family was thrilled to host friends who flew in from Miami to Texas for a celebration. The atmosphere was lively as they chatted and enjoyed a delicious meal together. However, Victor had been concealing his true feelings. When the moment was right, he stood up to make a toast. "I would like to raise a glass to my grandson and his lovely wife," he began, prompting cheers and hugs from the guests. Then he dropped a bombshell. "Did you know they came here thinking I was going to die soon? They remodeled my house, gave away some of my belongings, and assumed it was already theirs. When I returned from the hospital, they planned to leave me with a half-finished home." The room fell silent, and Paul nervously suggested a private conversation, but Victor refused. "I overheard your plans. You came here to take care of me, but you wanted my house for yourselves. That will never happen, Paul. I've revised my will. This house will go to charity when I'm gone." Shocked, Natalie turned red, wanting to protest but holding back. Victor then demanded everyone leave his house immediately, threatening to call the police. The next day, he informed his daughter Juliana about Paul and Natalie's intentions. Although she felt ashamed of her son, she also disapproved of Victor's deception. "It's your house, but are you sure about severing ties with Paul?" she asked. Victor replied, "He severed it the day he plotted against me. He lived for 11 more years, ultimately donating his estate to a charity for senior citizens."